a 6-year-old boy is rescued by a soldier and begins his journey as Russia's youngest hero. Today we will recap the story of the 2019 movie called Soldier Boy. We are in the 1940s in the midst of World War II. Seriosha Alishkov is hanging from a tree trunk, contemplating nature while his mother washes some clothes. On the banks of a river, his older brother, Petya, is fishing for dinner when suddenly a plane appears and starts shooting at them. The woman asks the boys to hide, but Seryoza bravely uses his powerful slingshot to blow up the airship and defeat the enemy. However, when he turns around to speak to his mother and brother, they are both gone at this time. The boy is awakened by the sound of someone knocking on the door. He rushes to attend to her, believing the person outside to be his mother. However, he is surprised by the arrival of his Aunt Anastasia. The woman is scared and asks the boy to pack his things to leave. Anastasia informs him that the boy's mother and brother were killed, and if the soldiers found out that Seryoza was his sister's son, they would kill him too. Her plan was to take the boy and say he's her son. But before they can escape, German soldiers invade the house. The woman helps Seryoza escape through the window, but ends up being shot. The boy runs into the forest in terror and tries to find a place to hide. Deep down, he still believed his mother would find him. But the young man could barely imagine the challenges he would face. From now on, a few hours have passed, and Seriosha has to find a way to survive on his own. While drinking water on the banks of a river, the boy is surprised by the arrival of some soldiers. Traumatized by what had happened, he soon looks for a place to hide. For a few minutes, Seriosha sneaks between the roots of a large tree, but something unexpected happens. A snake appears beside him. The little one is scared to death, but even so, he forces himself to remain silent. For him, no fear is greater than that, of suffering the same fate as his family members. Meanwhile, the soldiers build a fire and take the opportunity to rest. After eating, they put out the fire and leave. At that moment, Seriosha finally manages to get away from that tenebrous serpent. Hungry, the boy picks up one of the cans left by the men, hoping to find scraps of food. A few days have passed, and the boy is so weak that he can barely walk. He finds some small fruits on the way, but soon the place is bombed and Seriosha has to flee. That afternoon, it starts to rain. However, the boy is exhausted and without strength to go out in search of shelter. A few hours later, he is found by 2 Russian soldiers who take him to the camp there. Seriosha is greeted by Kuznetsov, the commander, who immediately requests the help of his men to feed and care for the boy. From that day forward, the boy is called by his new nickname, Sergei. A few hours had passed, and the soldiers try to distract their minds by talking about their family members before starting a new battle. However, when they least expect it, they're surprised by a bomb in the infirmary. Sergei has his injuries tended to by Nurse Katya. Due to the attack, new wounded arrive at the scene, and the woman rushes to tend to them all. Even weak and injured, Sergei doesn't shut up for a minute and shows enthusiasm to learn more about being a soldier. Little by little, the boy will fit in and win the hearts of everyone around him. Khadija is called by one of the soldiers, and when she arrives outside the tent, she finds a goat. Everyone wonders how the animal ended up in a place like that, but they are happy because in the following days, they could drink milk and eat cheese, something extremely rare in the reality in which they were living. At that time, Kuznetsov and his companions appear. The man immediately goes to check on Sergei and is relieved to see that the boy is slowly recovering. The boy says that he received an injection with a huge needle, which caused him a lot of pain. He admits that at first he wanted to run away, but due to his courage, he decided to stay. Finally, Sergei asks to see the commander's pistol, and after unloading the weapon, the man hands it over to him. The young boy asks about the signature on the side of the weapon, and Kuznetsov reveals that it is a special weapon, which was given to him by General Ostashov. Hearing this, Sergei gets even more excited and starts simulating as if he was shooting. At this point, the man takes the pistol from the boy's hands and puts it back for he is still too young to develop a taste for that sort of thing, contrary to all the commander's expectations. Sergei shows off the battle tank he designed on his belly. He then asks Kuznetsov if he owns a plane. Upon discovering that the man has never owned an airship, Sergei decides to draw one on the band. That wraps his injured arm. When the commander leaves the tent, Katya works up the courage to go talk to him about the boy. The nurse asks the man to let the boy stay with them, and Kuznetsov immediately denies the request. He claims that a child does not belong there, and says he will take him to an orphanage later. Some soldiers go to visit Sergei, and the young man is excited to use binoculars for the first time as they leave. Rizzo appears and the boy runs into his arms. The man hands the boy candy. Like the rest of the camp, Rizzo is building strong bonds with him. During the night, Katya talks to her fellow nurse and tells her that she can't sleep anymore because since Sergei arrived, she can't stop thinking about him. The woman claims that the moment she saw him for the first time, something inside her changed. Like a maternal instinct, Katya reveals that although she doesn't want the boy to be in the middle of the war, but in a safe environment, her biggest fear is the commander will send him somewhere else, because then she can never find him again. The next morning, Igor goes to talk to Kuznetsov. The soldier tries to convince him to leave the boy at the camp, as the soldiers have become attached to him. After all, when they looked at Sergei, they felt their hearts warmer, since it is for the children's future that these men were fighting. However, the commander, once again, states that there is no place for children in that war. Camp Kuznetsov admits he's also attached to the boy, but he needed to do what's best for him. Finally, the commander says that he has already signed the papers for the orphanage show. His men should start getting used to the idea of not having the young man around anymore. A few hours later, during an attack, Kuznetsov orders his soldiers to bomb the enemies while he goes to the battlefield to help Katya, who is carrying out the rescue of a wounded man. When the battle comes to an end, they return to the camp, and the orphanage's director is there to take Sergei. The man waits in the car while they say goodbye to the boy, but Katya is extremely sad and decides to leave without saying goodbye. Kuznetsov asks Sergei to sit next to him and tries to explain to him what will happen from then on. However, before he could say anything, the boy starts crying and hugs him. He says he was waiting for the commander and was afraid he wouldn't be able to see him again. At that time, the man hands him a weapon carved in wood and asks if the boy would like to be his son. The two embrace, and Kuznetsov rips up the orphanage documents. He had already signed now. The next challenge is finding clothes that fit Sergei. The newest member of the army needed a uniform his size, so Igor sets aside some old pieces for the clothier to make new clothes for the boy. Soon after, Katya appears with the smallest boots she could get. After a few tweaks from the shoemaker, they would be perfect for Sergei. The next morning, Kuznetsov goes to the boy's room to wake him up. The man says that like a real soldier, he would have to get dressed in 45 seconds. Then he hands him his new uniform. The boy is extremely happy and runs to get ready, but first asks why he has a sticker stuck to the face of Kuznetsov, his new father, and the man claims that due to an oversight, he cut himself while shaving. To count the 45 seconds, the commander lights a match and says that Sergei has to be ready before the wood burns completely. A few matchsticks later,